It started with small pieces of stone falling from the sky. Then came ash. Then came darkness. In Pompeii's final hours, busy streets turned into scenes of fear. People ran for safety. Others stayed inside, hoping their homes would protect them. Some hid in rooms and waited for the nightmare to pass. But new discoveries show that the end of Pompeii was even more frightening than people once believed. Archaeologists now think the city was being hit by both the eruption and strong earthquakes at the same time. Even after nearly 2,000 years, Pompeii is still revealing what those final minutes were really like. Before the eruption, Pompeii was a busy Roman city near the Bay of Naples. It was full of homes, shops, bathhouses, temples, and workshops. Rich families lived in large houses with painted walls and private rooms for guests, while workers and enslaved people lived very different lives. That is one reason Pompeii is so powerful today. It does not show us just one kind of life. It shows a whole city. The new discoveries, from luxury rooms to working spaces, make that picture even clearer and more human than before. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, the disaster did not happen all at once. At first, pumice and ash began falling on the city. Roofs started to weaken, and streets became harder to cross. Breathing grew more difficult. People had to make fast choices with very little information. Should they run? Should they hide? Should they stay with family members and wait? As the hours passed, the danger grew worse. Hot clouds of ash and gas moved across the area, and the force of the eruption kept building. New research suggests earthquakes may have been shaking buildings apart during the same deadly event. One of the biggest reasons we know more today is the new excavation work in an area called Regio 9. This part of Pompeii has produced a huge amount of fresh evidence. Archaeologists have uncovered more than 50 rooms across a large section of the city. These spaces include homes, work areas, painted reception rooms, a shrine, and a large private bath complex. Together, they are giving experts a much fuller picture of daily life just before the city was destroyed. Instead of seeing Pompeii as a frozen postcard from the past, we now see a place full of movement, work, status, religion, and last-second decisions. One of the saddest new discoveries comes from a house where a family appears to have made a final attempt to survive. Archaeologists found signs that people tried to block a doorway with a bed, likely hoping to keep ash and debris out of the room. Inside, they found the remains of at least 4 people, including a child. It is a small detail, but it says so much. In that moment, this was no longer about politics, wealth, or daily routine. It was about fear, protection, and the desperate hope that one more barrier might buy a little more time. Discoveries like this make Pompeii feel less like an ancient ruin and more like a real human tragedy. For a long time, most people pictured Pompeii's destruction as only a volcanic disaster. But newer research suggests that strong earthquakes were also part of the story. In at least one case, archaeologists found evidence that collapsing walls may have killed people who had survived the first stage of the eruption. That changes the way we imagine those final hours. People were not only trying to escape falling ash and toxic clouds, they may also have been trapped by buildings breaking apart around them. This helps explain why Pompeii's last minutes were so chaotic. The city was being hit by more than one deadly force at the same time. Another discovery shows a darker side of Pompeii long before the eruption killed anyone. Archaeologists uncovered what has been described as a prison bakery, a place where enslaved workers and animals were kept in harsh conditions to grind grain for bread. The room had small, high windows with bars and wear marks on the floor that helped control movement inside. This matters because it reminds us that Pompeii was not just a beautiful city of frescoes and villas. It was also a place built on hard labor and inequality. Even in its final story, class and power shaped how people lived and how they suffered. At the other end of Pompeii's social world, new discoveries reveal how the rich used their homes to impress people. In Reggio 9, archaeologists uncovered a striking black reception room, a large private bath complex, and other elegant spaces linked to a wealthy house. These were not just rooms for comfort. They were part of a public show inside a private home. Owners could welcome guests, host meals, and display their wealth, taste, and influence. The bath complex is one of the largest private ones found in Pompeii, which tells us just how important status and image were. Even near the end, the city was full of both luxury and pressure. Not every new discovery in Pompeii is huge in size, but some are still powerful. One example is the House of Phaedra, a smaller home with beautiful wall paintings and careful decoration. Even though the house did not have the grand layout of a rich mansion, it still showed taste, ambition, and attention to detail. That makes the discovery important. It reminds us that beauty in Pompeii was not limited to the biggest homes. People wanted style and meaning in smaller spaces too, and that helps us see the city as more layered and more alive. One of the most exciting new finds is a large painted room now known as the House of Theasus. Its walls show a rare scene linked to Dionysus, the god of wine, ritual, and wild celebration. The figures are nearly life-size, and the artwork is so unusual that experts see it as one of Pompeii's most important recent discoveries. What makes it even more striking is that this room was already old by the time Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD. In other words, Pompeii did not just preserve a city at one moment in time. It also preserved older memories, beliefs, and styles that were still part of daily Roman life. Science is also changing what we think we know about the people who died in Pompeii. A new DNA study examined remains found inside several of the famous plaster casts. The results challenged older ideas about who these people were and how they were related. In some cases, stories repeated for years about family members or identities may not have been right. That matters because Pompeii has often been told through powerful images and assumptions. Now, science is helping separate legend from evidence. The victims are still deeply moving, but the new research reminds us that real history is often more complex than the first story told. Taken together, these discoveries make Pompeii's final minutes feel more real than ever. We no longer see only a city buried by ash. We see families making choices, buildings shaking, workers trapped by harsh systems, and wealthy people living in a world of display and power. We also see how modern science keeps changing the story. Pompeii is still teaching us that disaster is never simple. It is made up of human decisions, social differences, fear, and the sudden collapse of ordinary life. That is why Pompeii still matters so much. It is not only a famous disaster site, it is one of the rare places where ancient life and ancient death can still be studied in such detail. Every new excavation adds something unexpected. Every new test raises new questions. And with each discovery, Pompeii feels less distant. It becomes a city of real people, caught in a moment they never saw coming. And maybe that is the most haunting part of all. Pompeii is not just about how a city died. It is about how people lived right up until the very end. Their last decisions, their fear, their hope, and their everyday lives are still waiting in the ash for us to find them. That is what makes every new discovery so powerful. It does not just teach us about the ancient world, it brings us face to face with it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next story from the ancient world. Please let me know in the comments which Pompeii discovery shocked you the most.